Hello everyone! In this video, we will tackle about the interpersonal psychiatry theory of Harry Stack Sullivan. What is interpersonal psychiatry theory?
Sullivan believed that the personality of an individual could never be studied in isolation.
Interpersonal psychiatry includes beliefs about the responsibility of others and other directed effects of anger and sympathy.
So for him, the personality is the product of long series of stages. Interpersonal theory emphasizes of the various developmental stages like the infancy, childhood, the juvenile era, the pre-adolescence, the early adolescence, late adolescence, and adulthood. So later, we will talk about the developmental stages. So now, let's talk about Harry Stack Sullivan. Harry Stack Sullivan is an American psychiatrist who developed a theory of psychiatry based on interpersonal relationship. He was born on February 21, 1892 in Norwich, New York, United States. He died on January 14, 1942 in Paris. Basic concepts. Sullivan defined personality as the characteristic ways in which an individual deals with other people. So, in his basic concepts, he said that the personality of an individual is the perfect characteristic to deal with others. People defined our personality based on how we act. Harry Stack Sullivan construct a comprehensive personality theory. People develop their personality within a social context. So the first terminology is tension, needs, anxiety, and energy transformation. So for me, tensions is a unawareness of actions, like you're not aware of what you're doing, like you felt conscious.
Tensions is a potentiality for action that may or not be experienced in awareness.
Sullivan recognized two types of tensions, the needs and anxiety. So when we say needs are tensions brought on biological imbalances between a person and psychochemical environment, both inside and outside of the organisms.
Needs usually result in productive action.
Although needs originally have a biological component, the most interpersonal needs is tenderness. A second type of tension is anxiety. Differs from tension of needs, and that is disjunctive. So Sullivan distinguished anxiety from fear in several important ways.
Anxiety leads to non-productive or disintegrative behaviors.
Energy transformations. Tensions that are transformed into actions, either overt or covert, are called energy transformation.
This somewhat awkward term simply refers to our behaviors that are aimed at satisfying needs and reducing anxiety that trigger great tensions.
Dynamism. Energy transformation become organized as a typical behavior patterns that characterize a person throughout a lifetime. Dynamism is a term that is about the traits or a habit patterns.
Malevolence is the disjunctive dynamism of evil and hatred characterized by the feeling of living among one's enemies. The example of malevolent action is timidity, cruelty, or other kinds of asocial or antisocial behavior. Intimacy grows out of the earlier need for tenderness but is more specific and involves a close interpersonal relationship between two people who are more or less of equal status. So in short, intimacy helps us to deal or to avoid with our anxiety, and this is what healthy people desires. In intimacy, this is between two people who have intimate relationship. By that, it can help the person forget their loneliness. Lust is an isolating tendency requiring no other person for its satisfaction. So in lust, it also refers on having an intimate relationship between your loved ones, especially in adolescent stage. They said that curiosity kills, but it's never been valid. Engaging premarital sex is not good, and it faces a lot of circumstances when you enter in that situation. Self-system. The most complex and inclusive of all the dynamisms is the self-system, a consistent pattern of behaviors that maintains people's interpersonal security by protecting them from anxiety. Like in intimacy, the self-system is a conjunctive dynamism that arises out of the interpersonal situation, but they have difference because self-system developed earlier than intimacy. Age 12 to 18 months. Security operations, the purpose of which is to reduce feelings of insecurity or anxiety that results from endangered self-esteem. Two important security operations are dissociation and selective inattention. Dissociation includes those impulses, desires, and needs that a person refuses to allow into awareness. So these experiences didn't exist, but it continued to influence our unconscious level. It shows on our dreams, daydreams, and other unwanted activities. Selective inattention is a refusal to see those things that we do not wish to see. It differs from the dissociation in both degree and origin. Examples are anxiety-motivated forgetting or perceptual distortion and hypnotical-induced negative hallucinations. Personification, beginning in infancy and continuing throughout the various developmental stages. People acquire certain images of themselves and others. Bad mother, good mother. Sullivan's notion of the bad mother and good mother is similar to Klein's concept of the bad breast and good breast. The best example is the nipples of the mother and the nipple of the bottle. The nipple of the mother means a good mother, and that is the best and appropriate way to feed an infant, and the nipple of the bottle shows the bad mother because it can't feed enough the infant. Me personification. During mid-infancy, a child acquires three me personification: bad me, good me, and not me, that form the building blocks of the self-personification. The bad me personification is fashioned from experiences of punishment and disapproval that infants receive from their mothering one. The good me personification results from infants' experiences with reward and approval. Infants feel good about themselves when they perceive that their mother's expressions of tenderness. Sudden severe anxiety, however, may cause an infant to form the not me personification and to either dissociate or selectively inattend experiences related to that anxiety. Eidetic personification. Not all interpersonal relations are with real people. Some are eidetic personification, that is, unrealistic traits or imaginary friend that many children invent in order to protect their self-esteem. Levels of cognition. Protatic level. The earliest and most primitive experiences of an infant take place on a protatic level. Because these experiences cannot be communicated to others, they are difficult to describe or define. Parataxic level. Parataxic experiences are pre-logical and usually result when a person assumes a cause and effect relationship between two events that occur coincidentally. Syntactic level. Experiences that are consensually validated and that can be symbolically communicated take place on a syntactic level. Stages of development. Sullivan postulated 7 epochs or stages of development, each crucial to the formation of human personality. The thread of interpersonal relation runs throughout the stages. Other people are indispensable to a person's development from infancy to mature adulthood. Infancy. Infancy begins at birth and continues until a child develops articulate or syntaxic. Age 0 to 1 year. Infants cannot survive without a mothering one to provide food, shelter, moderate temperature, physical contact, and the cleansing of waste materials. An infant expresses both anxiety and hunger through crying. The baby may even stop breathing and turn a bluish color, but the built-in protection of apathy and solemn detachment keep the infant from death. During the feeding process, the infant not only receives food but also satisfies some tenderness needs. Childhood. The era of childhood begins with the advent of syntaxic language and continues until the appearance of the need for playmates of an equal status. Age 1 to 5 years old. During childhood, emotions become reciprocal. A child is able to give tenderness as well as receive it. They also learn two other important processes: dramatization and preoccupations. Dramatizations are attempts to act like significant authority figures, especially mother and father. Preoccupations are strategies for avoiding anxiety and fear-provoking situation by remaining occupied with an activity. Juvenile era. The juvenile era begins with the appearance of the need for peers or playmates of equal status and ends when one finds a single chum to satisfy the need for intimacy.
Age 6 to 8. During the juvenile stage, Sullivan believed a child should learn to compete, compromise, and cooperate.
The juvenile age child must learn to cooperate with others in the real world of interpersonal relationships. Cooperation is a critical step in becoming socialized and is the most important task confronting children during this stage of development. Pre-adolescence. Pre-adolescence, which begins at 8 to 12 and ends with adolescence, is a time for intimacy with one particular person, usually a person of the same gender. The outstanding characteristic of pre-adolescence is the genesis of the capacity to love. Experiences during pre-adolescence are critical for the future development of personality. Early adolescence. Early adolescence begins with puberty and ends with the need for sexual love with one person. Age 13 to 17, the curiosity stage. The need for intimacy achieved during the presiding stage continues during early adolescence, but is now accompanied by a parallel but separate need lust. Sullivan believed that early adolescence is a turning point in personality development. Although sexual adjustment is important to personality development, Sullivan felt that the real issue lies in getting along with other people. Late adolescence. Late adolescence begins when young people are able to feel both lust and intimacy toward the same person. And it ends in adulthood when they establish a lasting love relationship. Age 18 to 22. Adulthood. Successful completion of late adolescence culminates in adulthood, a period when people can establish a love relationship with at least one significant other person. Sullivan had little to say about this final stage because he believed that mature adulthood was beyond the scope of interpersonal psychiatry. Psychological disorders. Sullivan believed that all psychological disorders have an interpersonal origin and can be understood only with reference to patient. Social environment. Most of Sullivan's early therapeutic work was the schizophrenic patients, and many of his subsequent lectures and writings dealt with this schizophrenia. These disorders were the only ones of concern to Sullivan because they are the only ones amenable to change through interpersonal psychiatry. Psychotherapy. In general terms, Sullivanian therapy is aimed to uncovering patients' difficulties in relating to others. Sullivan's theory is neither optimistic or pessimistic concerning the potential for growth and change. The relative lack of testing of Sullivan's theory diminishes its usefulness as a practical guide for parents, teachers, psychotherapists, and others concerned with the care of children and adolescents. Thank you!